All right. Hello and welcome back to the Michael Edwards Show. I am joined by the beautiful Rebecca Cousins today. Rebecca was a client of mine in a mastermind, and she is an amazing mom and online entrepreneur and I've been watching her thrive recently, and I always see her pop up and I always see the energy and feel the kind of life behind what she's doing. And I just kept saying to myself, I've got to have her on and we've got to have a conversation because as we were just laughing about before we started, when you were saying I'm not that into the woo, but you still had, an incredible experience that was linked to the woo. I'm trying not to use that word anymore, but I know it was your word.
So accurate.
Welcome. Yeah. And let's start with that. That's really, I feel like the beginning of when I met you is this. You were in in someone else's container, like a business container. And then as a part of that, you got this other thing, and here comes this guy, and I don't really get what he does. And then I remember talking about the solar plexus and all of these things. And I remember at first you just being like, I don't know about this.
Oh my gosh. I have to say, this might be the best intro I've ever had on a podcast. This is so fun. So, yeah, we've had quite a journey together, Michael. That is for sure.
So good. So can you like share a little bit about what that was like from your perspective?
Yeah. So, as Michael was saying, I was part of a business mastermind with a coach. And as part of that group, we had an experience, a 6-week experience where Michael came in and worked his magic in the group. And that was my first experience ever meeting Michael. I didn't know who he was. I'd never heard of him. I had never even encountered a person like Michael before. And it was just such a wild but incredible experience. And it's fun to joke now because when we first met, I didn't know what to expect with the work that he did. And he does very different work than I do, and most of the women who were entrepreneurs in that container. And so we had just such a great meeting, and Michael was able to just make me feel so at ease and so comfortable from that very first step. And I've learned so much. You talk about this growth, and I would love to dive into this a little bit more, but you talk about this growth that you see in me. And I honestly attribute a lot of that to the experience that I had when we met.
I just got chills. I do because I can feel it energetically. But I remember what I felt from you is this energy of I've got business stuff to do. I'm here for business. This is very serious. I don't have really time for anything else. And I feel like through our experience together, you reconnected to something deep within yourself. You reconnected to your creativity and this sense of like feminine energy and all of these things. And it's funny because that's the very thing that I feel every time you pop up. Like every time I see something from you, every time you pop up in my feed, even though you're talking about business, I feel this, yeah, this embodied, empowered energy. It's like this soft power. I don't know how to like fully articulate it, but I'm so glad that you connected back to that time as well.
Yeah. And I think that's so when we met, I was at a very interesting place in my business because I was coming off of a really long run owning a marketing agency, a very successful agency, and I was starting to pivot into coaching. And a lot of what I was experiencing when we first met was feeling imposter syndrome. I was stepping into this whole new world where there was a lot of successful entrepreneurs. I was now in this container with an incredible coach, the most amazing women I have been around in a long time. And I was just feeling almost like I didn't belong at the table. I was really struggling with that because I was coming from a place where I had so much success to now pivoting to this arena where I just felt like I was a fish out of water. I thought it was going to be such an easy transition. I thought I was going to be able to bring all of my 20 years of experience and this work I was doing with some incredible entrepreneurs, and it was going to transition very easily into a coaching space. And I was struggling at the time. So when you and I met, I was very much in the space of feeling insecure. I was struggling with my creativity because I was blocking a lot of that. I think just with feeling anxious about where I was at in my business, about all these transitions, about the room that I was in with all these incredible other entrepreneurs. And so much was being blocked that I was starting to lose sight of who I was, my creativity, and honestly, just what made me so unique and special as a business owner and an entrepreneur. And so that's about the point that we met. So you're right. We always joke that I was just very buttoned up, very serious. Was like, okay, what's the strategy? What are the steps? I'm not into this whole feeling thing. I'm not into I call it the woo. I'm not into that side of it. Let's just get down to the strategy and let's go. And you were like, no, hold on. We're gonna experience something different here.
It's so funny because I feel like through that journey, there was such a shift too. Like I remember your first session asking you to connect to your body and things that were going on inside. And you were just like, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know.
Yes.
But I remember the second session was incredible. So there was like quite a surrendering in that time, I think.
Yeah, so true. So what Michael's referring to is he said you did this meditation, for lack of a better word, and you said, okay, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to dig deep and connect down to your solar plexus. And I remember I had my eyes closed and I opened one eye and I was like, okay, I have no idea what a solar is. I like don't even know how to connect to that. And so I remember just floundering through that. But once I released into it and just went with it, I remember just feeling something that I hadn't felt in a long time. I started to feel connected back to myself again. And so the next week when we came together, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to completely surrender. Michael knows what he's doing. I trust him. I'm just going to, I'm going to step into this whole world that up until now I knew nothing about. I still don't really know anything about it, but I'm here for the ride. I'm here for the journey, and I'm going to be open to it because I think he's really onto something here and I can benefit from what I'm going to learn.
Oh my goodness, so amazing, so amazing. And then I will never forget, it's actually a session that stands out when we had that second session when you were in that more surrendered space. And I just remember it being so beautiful. And something that's always stood out to me is there was this kind of part where there was like the creative, free-spirited, like romantic version of you. And then there was this other version, this like serious version. And there was this momentary thought of, do I get rid of this other part? And it's really interesting actually, because I know from something called parts therapy that we're not actually supposed to get rid of any parts of ourselves. But the way that I work now is with the person's like natural intelligence, like letting them just like almost work it out themselves, like in that state. And I remember you coming to this realization of it's all me and integrating like these two different energies. And I just like, and of course you didn't know all of this, that I was thinking about these different parts until now. But it was so beautiful because I knew in that moment that you were tapping into this innate intelligence and wisdom within your being, that all of it is you, and all of those parts coming into harmony is just like magical.
Yeah. And I remember that too. And I think that's something that has really brought me to where I am today was because being a female entrepreneur and being somebody who came from the corporate world, I always felt like I really had to, now I recognize, tap into that masculine energy in order to prove myself, to keep up with my male counterparts, to really, I think, solidify my space in that world. And then it transitioned right into when I was running the agency. I felt like I was always competing with my male counterparts. And I think that's why I was so tapped into that side of me, because that is the part that I really had to use all those years. So I felt, and I didn't even understand until I met you really that there was a feminine side and a masculine side. That was something that was completely new to me, that whole concept. And so when you shared that, and when I started to learn how I could tap into both sides of me and really utilize all of me as a whole, both the feminine and the masculine, that's when I would really start to see success, because I wouldn't be pushing one side of me away all the time, which is what I was doing. I was really in that feminine side, not tapping into that creativity. And it was causing me to feel so stuck. And not that I wasn't using creativity, right? Because I have to with my marketing and
Yeah.
helping people with their strategies, but it's a very different, I felt like it was a very different side of me that I was using versus that free flowing, just more myself, really,
Yeah.
that was being suppressed for so long.
It's a different energy, isn't it? It's almost like creativity at
Yeah.
gunpoint. It's like, you've
Yeah.
got to be creative because we've got to get this ad creative done because we've got to do this launch,
Yeah,
as opposed to
exactly.
like, oh, that's not how that side of me operates. She doesn't do well at gunpoint.
Yeah, that's so you have 5 minutes to come up with a tagline that's going to sell me
Oh my
$30,000
goodness.
of my lunch.
So funny too, because it's so counter to what's been coded into so many of us. And I know that's something that I really had to work through myself as well. And whenever there were difficult seasons in business, that would want to come up and it would just be like, I've just got to push, I've just got to push, I've just got to work these 12-hour days, I've got to put the time and the energy and the sacrifice. But the truth is, and I've seen this like cycle and correlation in my business again and again. Now I'm much better about it, but is that I was always had the most success when I was living in alignment, when I was taking care of
Mhm.
myself, when there was a lot of balance, when there was a lot of freedom, when business felt like fun because it wasn't the only thing. But it's such a strong paradigm, sticky template, as my one friend likes to call it, that so many of us get stuck in. I'm so happy
Yeah.
that you got to be free of that because it's not even just about the business. It's like life is so much better. I feel like your quality of life, I'm sure if you would agree, is just so much better when you're operating outside of that like masculine push paradigm.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I think it's such a journey, right? I don't think that we ever come to this place where we've just figured it out and we've been able
Yeah.
to master that. And for myself, I know that I'm still on a journey, and it's a journey where I have to show up each day and I have to make a choice almost, because I'm just so predispositioned to go back into the masculine side of always striving and pushing and working. And I have to really stop myself and say, okay, that's okay, but only to a certain point. I need to be bringing in some creativity. I need to take care of myself. I need to take a break. And that's always been a struggle for me, and I don't know that I'll ever come to a point where it's going to just be 100% natural. Maybe I will, and it'll be something that I don't have to work on daily, but
Yeah.
at least I'm at a place now where I recognize it, and it's this almost like this awakening to it. And once you know it and you see it and you understand it, you can't ever go back. And so I'm so grateful for that, because now I know that I need both sides, the masculine and the feminine, in order to be successful. And I'm starting to really feel that on the journey that I'm on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, and I think I always think about what direction do my time boundaries need to go right now? Because I think there's like a point in our lives, maybe when we're younger, when we're like, we really need to, the time boundaries actually need to be like work focused. It needs to be, okay, no, I'm actually setting that, like, especially in the beginning, right? When people aren't used to maybe working for themselves or creating their own schedule, there's this thing of, okay, I've got to make these hours for work and make sure that I'm working and make sure that I'm working. But then there comes this time where there's a flip and it's the time boundary has to go in the opposite direction. It's got to contain the work hours and the work energy and go, okay,
Mhm.
like work stops at this time, whether it feels like it's done or not. Because the truth is, as an entrepreneur, it's never done. There's always something
Right.
else. There's always something more. There's always more sales. There's always another report. There's always nothing that can be done. There's always another email that could be written. And I think it's something that we do keep in our that we do have to stay conscious to, that we do have to
Yeah.
have these little check-ins and reminders and go, oh. And I also think that there's seasons, and I think this is really powerful too, is creating a context for a season, right? And so going, okay, I'm like maybe going to rebrand or something. So that means it's all of that time and energy on top of my normal operations energy, but I'm going to take these 2 weeks or whatever it is, and I'm going to make that intentional container but then it stops. This doesn't become my new normal. And I think that's a really big thing. What are we allowing to become normal? Are we allowing I only work and I don't spend time with my family to become normal? Am I allowing I only work and I don't take care of my health to become normal? Am I making I only work and I don't like do the things that bring me joy and pleasure normal? And then that's where we've got to bring in that discernment and kind of rebalance those energies. So yeah, I just
Yes.
love.
Yeah. And I think too, most of us became entrepreneurs because we didn't want to have to be so bound, or
Yeah.
we wanted that freedom. We wanted that joy of being able to create our own schedules and take off an afternoon or go have lunch with a friend or have more time with our families. But then we,
But then
yeah, then we get into these rhythms where we're like, no, work. I can't stop. Sorry, friend. I can't go have lunch with you. I've got too much to do today. And then at that point, then really you're creating a 9 to 5 job for yourself. Right. And I learned that lesson the hard way. And I shared this with you in one of our sessions is I had years ago had started to build on top of my marketing agency. I had a little side hustle, which I started as just a hobby, and it quickly just exploded overnight and gained a lot of PR and a lot of focus. And I started finding that I was working all the time on this business, almost to the detriment, definitely to the detriment of my health, but also to the detriment of my marriage, of my family. I wasn't being the mother that I wanted to be. And it was then that I started to realize, okay, I need to get into this place where I have boundaries on my time. I have boundaries around what I'm willing to do in my business and really start to shape what I want my life to look like as an entrepreneur. And that was a huge wake up call for me. And I'm so glad that it was a terrible experience to go through because it was eye opening in the sense that I was letting my business control me. But it
yeah.
was such a necessary process for me to go through because I am the type of person very driven, very self motivated, and I will just work and work and work and work. And it took that fear of, what am I doing and what effect is this having on my family to come to that realization. And so now, as all these years later, that isn't as much of a problem for me. I still can slip into those moments. I know probably the same with you and the same with most entrepreneurs. We love our businesses. And
Yeah.
it's so easy to just want to work because, yeah, it's work, but it's also fun. If you're passionate about what you do, it's also fun. And so I enjoy what I do. I love the women that I work with and I love the work that I do. And so sometimes it almost just feels a little fun thing that I'm doing as well. And I enjoy putting time into it, but it can be a slippery slope with those boundaries and that time for sure.
It's so interesting that you bring up the like entrepreneurs wanting freedom thing because this is something that I've been tuning even more into recently. There's a thing called Graves values levels, and it looks at these kind of different levels of belief systems and values that we have in it's like different iterations of consciousness. And values level 4 is very much about systems and order. So you can think of that as being corporate life, very systems-based thinking. And what happens is that we tend to reject a lot of the stuff from the previous values level when we move on. So values level 5 is self-interest and entrepreneurship. And so that's values level 4. We see there's people out there living their own way. They're making their own income. They're living their freedom. Goodbye, system-based thinking. Hello, freedom. And then we start to realize like all the possibilities and all the things. But what's really interesting is what I realized is that to fully conquer each level, you need to integrate the gift from the level before. And so the gift
Mm,
from values level 4, which is systems, is order, right? And how many entrepreneurs do we know that are like, I just want to be free, I just want to be free. And people are trying to have a
yeah.
conversation about systems with them and they go, oh, I don't need it. I don't want a system for it. I just want to, but that doesn't necessarily work in the long run. And so there's, I think, this harmonization of bringing in that order from values level 4. And it's interesting because I look at them, the values levels as they also have this little bit of alternation between masculine and feminine as they go up the ladder. So there is that more masculine order coming in to that freedom that we might experience at level 5. But it's just it's so predictable actually that you can chart it in this system that
Mm.
looks at the way that people evolve. So I think it's just funny that you said it like that because I think that's exactly what happens. I read this one book, I think it was called The E-Myth. It was one of my favorite books about entrepreneurship. And he talks about how most entrepreneurs have just had an entrepreneurial fit and they quit their job. And they're like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And then shortly after the initial thing of getting excited about branding and website, whatever, all they want to do is just like, they don't want to be their own boss. They just want to not have a boss and they just want to do whatever the
Yes.
thing is that they do, but they don't want to be the manager and the accountant and the director of marketing and the and all the things. It's so funny.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny that you bring that up because I think that is just that nails it right there. There's so many people who romanticize the idea of being an entrepreneur until they're actually doing it. And then you
Yeah.
realize, okay, it's a lot of work. It's lot of up and down emotions. It's a roller coaster. And I always joke that it's one of the craziest self-development experiments you'll ever go on because it's not like just this 4-hour work week that book makes it out to be, or this sipping margaritas on
Yeah.
the beach with this laptop lifestyle. You're in it and you've got all of those roles, like you said. And while it's amazing, it is an up and down and a lot of work in some ways.
I'm really curious. You talked about how you led this very successful marketing agency
Mhm.
or were a part of, and then you had this other business that just blew up by accident. What do you think was different about those two experiences from fully running your own business yourself?
In the sense of what made one just blow up on its own,
Well, because
or
you talked about with this business how it was
Mhm.
harder, and you said that you came from this really successful agency, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to transfer all these skills to what I'm doing now, and it's going to be so easy. What do you think it is about that? Because I had a similar experience, so I'm curious. What do you think that's about?
Yeah, with my agency moving into coaching, I think where it felt a little sticky for me is that I came from working almost behind the scenes, helping some of the biggest names in the industry grow their businesses.
Mm.
And I have 20 years of experience in marketing and I know how to create successful campaigns. I know how to grow a business. I've grown 3 of my own. I've helped other women do it. And I thought, oh, this is just going to be such an easy transition for me to go into coaching. And for many reasons, it was, for all intents and purposes, it was an easy transition because I just took what already my skills and my genius and all of that into helping other women. But what I didn't anticipate is how much mindset stuff was going to come up with that, how much
Mm.
imposter syndrome would start to creep in. And I think that's what made it a much more difficult transition than I had ever experienced before. Because when I first got my start in entrepreneurship, I was working a 9 to 5 job and I had just had my first son and I got laid off. And I thought, I could go back and get another job, or I could just take all of the skills and knowledge that I have and do my own thing. And I've always just had that tenacity and that confidence to just dive feet first into things and then figure them out later. And so with each business that I've built, I've done that until I got to this one. And when I transitioned into coaching, it was during 2020. It was like right after that whole situation. And there was a lot of stuff going on online and a lot of almost, I would say, just conflict online. So I was coming into the space during that period, which made me feel a little insecure. But I
Mhm.
also felt stressed about my abilities to help people because I felt like I was coming into the space with all of these people who I was working behind the scenes with. And so there was almost this internal conflict for me of, okay, can I stand in the room with these people? And can I stand shoulder to shoulder with them after working with them for so many years? And that just created a whole lot of doubt in my mind for some reason. And I think that was the real difference. That's where I believe that entrepreneurship is, yes, it's a lot of your skill set, but a lot of it's your mindset as well. And if you don't
Yeah.
have 100% belief in yourself and that you can do what you're setting out to do, then you're going to have a rough go at it, because you have to have the unwavering belief in yourself first before you can actually go out and help people.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's so true, isn't it? It's why there's so much coaching. It's why
Mhm.
coaching is such a big piece of entrepreneurship, right? And people have to go on these huge journeys of self-development because you are the business, and emotional intelligence is such a key piece, and being able to hold all the different energies that come in, right? Like the high
Yeah.
seasons, the low seasons. And I notice more and more in the work that I do that when we hit new heights, new things can be triggered, right? So you might conquer imposter syndrome at this level and go, of course I'm meant to be here. I don't even know why I thought that. This is ridiculous. And then
Yeah.
you might be asked to go and speak on a world stage, and all of a sudden new stuff comes up. New people will say new level, new devil. When it's like these different things come up, or the same things can happen with money. And I see this is a huge ceiling that I see entrepreneurs hit. And something that I've been focusing on a lot more recently is it's like people will restructure their business a bunch of different ways, but they'll hit the same income ceiling because it's not actually about the business. It's a subconscious, unconscious, emotional, energetic block that they have
Yeah.
to the money coming in a different way. To it can be things where we have difficulty perceiving the value. Like if we still correlate work or effort or time in relation to value, then it's very difficult to charge in a way that's truly reflective of our skill and our
Mhm.
knowledge. People can feel guilty about things. They can just, a lot of people have this thing where there's like the feeling of almost honor in hard work. So if it's easier
Yeah.
to make 10 times more money, it feels like it's wrong somehow, and we'll reject that, even
Yeah.
though that consciously I've been running up this hill to get to that. But energetically and unconsciously, no, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. And so people will really spin their wheels. And it's funny when you talk about the woo woo and the more spiritual side and everything that I do, is that's what I find is when a lot of people crack and are like, okay, I'll try this because you were recommended and all these things. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden there's just, oh, everything's working now. The problem was, it's so funny.
It's the Michael magic. Yeah. But that is so true. It's so true. And I think that's where I'm at now, I believe, because I was holding on to that so tight, that feeling of just, oh gosh, I don't know. Can I pull up my seat to this table? Am I good enough? Am I skilled enough? And it took that realization of what? No, I am. And I can hold my own at this table. I know I can because I've helped all of these other people build their businesses. So why am I now starting to question that just because I'm stepping into a new role? There's no reason to question that. And I learned a lot of that from working with you and just being able to tap into that and realize, okay, yes, there will always be having to tap into that comp. And yes, I will always need to be growing and I'll always need to be developing my skills. But most of the skills that I already have after 20 years of being in this industry leaps and bounds above where most people are. And I just need to be willing to own that.
Mm-hmm.
And that took shedding a lot of things that had just built up over a lifetime of feeling like, oh, I need to be humble. I need to
Oh my
be
God.
reserved. I can't own my genius because I don't want people to think that I'm too much or whatever. And it took a lot of self work to get past that. And I'm still on that journey today. But I think women especially, we need to start being able to step into ourselves and be able to own what we can bring to the table, because we have so many skills, we have so much to give to the world and so much impact that we can make. And a lot of times we're too afraid to show it. And I want to break that. I don't want that to be the norm for women. And so I'm trying to start with myself, and I'm trying to be a good leader for the people that I work with and my clients and also my kids. Yeah.
Yeah, say goodbye to being humble
Yeah.
because it never got anyone anywhere. We can
It
have the
didn't.
energy of humility without diminishing ourselves. When someone
Yeah.
actually said to me recently, if you have this unfair advantage, use it. If you have an unfair advantage, why are you dimming it and going, oh, well, I have
Yeah.
this great thing, like you having this great experience. And then you're like, oh, I have to be humble. I can't own that. And there's, oh, why am I not standing out? But why do we do that? Of course you should stand out. Of course you should own the experience and the edge that you have. Of course your unfair advantage should be your
Yeah.
advantage, right? It's so funny.
Exactly. And I think you use the term be a beacon for people. Do you remember that? And when you were talking about that, you said, no, you need to show up and be the beacon for other women who want to do what you're doing. And you need to show them that it's possible. And I remember that was such an aha moment for me. That was such an eye-opening experience because that is really my mission, is to help women find freedom in entrepreneurship. And if I'm over here afraid to step into that role myself because I'm dimming my own light and I'm being humble and I'm not sharing my expertise with the world because I'm too afraid, then what kind of beacon am I going to be? So when you said that, that was just such an awakening for me, that
Yeah, a
aha
million
moment.
percent. It's because the loudest thing that we share with people is the energy of who we're being. And so we
Yeah.
think, like logically, when in the frequency of mind, we think, oh, I want to lift others up. It's almost this, I lower myself, I scoop from an empty cup and I give to them because I'm trying to lift them up. But we're actually sharing that energy and that message if we do that, right? So when we fully
Yeah.
own that, no, I lift my up and I show you what's possible. I share the energy, I share the light, I share the knowledge and wisdom with you, so like you can come with me, you can do it too. It's I shine so bright that it reminds you how bright you can shine. And that's what really makes change. And that's so foreign for some people. I was having a disagreement with a family member the other day, and they were talking about, they just have a lot of really different ideas about life in the world that I do, but they also have a lot of suffering. And I was saying, but it's because of the way you think. And you've got to be the change you want to see in the world. You've got to be the
Yes.
embodiment of the thing you want to create. And that's actually what brings it more into reality, because then you become like a focal point for that energy, which is just, it's counter
Yeah.
to what seems conventionally
Mhm.
logical, but it's actually not. So I am
Yeah.
curious, how have friendships changed for you since you've been on this journey of entrepreneurship and really stepped into the I am an entrepreneur?
That's interesting because I know a lot of my clients really struggle with this because their friendships and their relationships will change, and sometimes not for the better.
Yeah.
And I've honestly have never experienced anything negative like that around being an entrepreneur. My family was always very supportive because I came from a long line of entrepreneurs. So that was just in my bloodline, and in was just always what I knew. My friends, especially like my close friends, are all very supportive because I don't think really any of them understand what I do. They just go along with it and they're like, okay, sure. And so I don't know. I don't really experience that. But I do know a lot of my clients will struggle with when they're starting their businesses. A lot of times they will have spouses that aren't supportive, or they'll
Mm.
have family and friends that aren't supportive. And that can be a really hard road to go down because, and I find that a lot of times what it is, it's not necessarily that they're unsupportive, it's that they just don't understand.
Mm.
And I think it's our job to make people in our lives understand what we do and explain to them how important it is to us. And unfortunately, what I've found is if people aren't supportive, then you have to make that hard decision on whether or not to let them go, because it doesn't really make sense to keep people in your life who aren't going to support you. And that's a hard realization for a lot of people. I've been very fortunate in the fact that either I just pick really good friends, or I don't know, but I haven't experienced that in my own life too much. So I've been fortunate in that area.
Yeah, it's definitely been a piece of the journey for me. So I can identify with your clients for there for sure. But
Yeah.
it's a
So how did you handle it then? How have you
it was interesting because for
experienced?
me, I didn't really have that
Mm.
initial resistance that some people have. I feel like a lot of people were on my side in the beginning. And especially when I became super successful and I was doing really well, people were like, oh, yeah, like my friend Michael. And they were stoked
Mm,
to go and do cool things for me. And for me, when it really came up is when I hit a difficult period in my business. And I went from absolutely thriving and just like making money like I'd never even imagined before to having a real season of struggle. And that a lot of the people that I was around, like immediately, just like the way that they saw me shifted. I wasn't having conversations with people where they were saying like, oh my God, no, you're amazing. I see all the things for you. There was this kind of real shift. And a lot of people talked about me behind my back. A lot of people shared things. And it was really heartbreaking. And it was hard because, of course, that led into this thing. And I'm grateful for all of that experience now because it actually showed me more stuff in my solar plexus, funnily enough, that I had to clear, which was this old
yeah.
identity of being a failure that had come from my dad. My dad had always expected failure out of us. He always had this energy of being like surprised if we succeeded. And I can feel this
Mm,
lighting up in my body as I tap into it. And just like expecting that we would fail. And so I felt like that was reflected, of course, the energetic match by a lot of these people that I was calling friends at that time. And so I really sank into this difficult time until I was able to clear that energy and clear that block. And as I cleared it and I rose back up into that true expression of who I am and the success and all of the things started working again, I realized that all of those people weren't my friends. And I will never forget the moment that it happened because it was on my birthday and I was talking to my friend and I was brought to tears because I was still getting things sorted out again. And he just said to me how much he believes in me and how much he sees the vision. And he just was like, you are it. You've got it. It's extraordinary what you've got. And I started to cry and I started to say, I am so grateful I don't really have anyone else that believes in me. And in that moment, I stopped myself because I realized that was actually no longer true. And
mm,
I realized that I had, through my own awakening, had come into this whole new sphere of people that I was connected to. Most of my friends now are entrepreneurs, and a lot of them are multimillionaires. And they all know they were like waiting for me to join the club. They were like, we know you're a genius. That's why we invite you to every party. And then I realized that these other people that had really just dropped me and had been so quick to criticize and so quick to, yeah, just to judge and just I don't even know what it was. It was really gross energy though. They weren't actually my friends anymore. And I had to stop
mm,
calling them friends and I had to stop inviting that energy and I
mm,
had to stop making myself available because, like you said, this journey of entrepreneurship is so difficult on its own. And there are so many emotional, energetic things that come up, like imposter syndrome, like the different blocks. And so it's just this realization of I can't have anyone in my life that's, if they're not going to believe in me, that I
yeah.
am the best thing ever on my worst day, I can't even have that. It's just, I energetically can't hold that because I
Yeah.
already have to hold so much. And I would never treat someone else like that. Like I see the best in everyone all the time. And I make a very conscious choice to do that. And I realize, it's deepening even as I'm saying this, that's why the people that are in my life now are the way that they are. And the beautiful thing too is I think we think things don't always go the way that we think we're going to. Like I'll add that on is that when we shift our frequency and our identity, I know you'll love this language. This is your favorite when we get into this.
Yeah. No,
The
bring it.
geometry and relationships changes. People either fall away or they come into the new geometry. They come into the new structure, the new frame, you could call it, of that relationship. And so what's really interesting is that sometimes people that we think are going to fall away don't. They actually come and they meet us in that
Hmm.
new relationship geometry, in that new relationship frame, but we don't know who's going to be who until we make the conscious and intentional and energetic decision to step into that truer, fuller expression of who we are and hold it. And then we see in our reality what happens. People will fall away or people will meet us there, but we don't know until we do
Yeah.
it for ourselves. So I think that's always a really interesting piece.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love this conversation so much because I think this can transcend into so many different areas of our lives, right? We can talk about
Yeah.
it from a standpoint of family or friends. You can talk about it in relation to as you're building your business and the people you encounter and you align yourself with. But I think you can also encounter it with clients. So
Yeah.
when I just in this last year, leveling up and starting to really find my groove in coaching and stepping into the type of coach that I want to be and how I'm growing my business in this next level that I'm taking things, not everybody came along,
Uh,
and that's okay. You lose clients. But I think what's really important to note is people are in your life for certain seasons, and they may come and go. They may come, they may just leave, and you never cross paths again. And that's okay. Everybody's there for a reason. And we take different things from relationships as they come and as they go. And not everybody is meant to be on the full journey with us. And
totally.
that's, a lesson that I've had to learn, especially in this last year, where I've lost a few clients who I just absolutely adore because they weren't wanting to go to this next stage. And that's okay. Not everybody's ready. And maybe they'll join me later, maybe they won't. But I think that's just something that as you're on this journey as a human, but also as an entrepreneur, that's something that you need to be prepared for and be ready for because it's
Yeah,
inevitable.
I love this example too, because you're also demonstrating what I was saying is that, but you have to go no matter what. Even if the
Mhm.
people that
You
are
have
around
to.
you aren't ready to go, like you have to go, because if you stay small for them or if you wait for them, it will lead to contraction and eventually like resentment within you. So that's so beautiful and so important. And it's interesting in situations like that, especially with clients and with friends too. I always remind myself that every soul is on their own journey. And
Mhm.
while someone may fall away or this might be goodbye for now, I always also hold space for them to come into a higher version of themselves. I really am making an intentional practice about not like slamming the door or like destroying relationships and in
Yeah.
any way that's like destructive, but just letting that be like a soft, it gets to be, it all gets to be okay. It gets to be, I'm going
Yeah.
over here and they're going there and we're not on the same path. But I think the important piece, no matter what, is that we're really honoring our truth and our path and where our going, because ultimately that's what's going to bring fulfillment. That's where we're going to we're going to be the most lit up and where we're going to be the best for the people that do have us.
Mhm.
No one wants you at your half mast.
So true. So
They
true.
want,
And there's relationships. I think when you think about the people who come with you, even if they're not necessarily on the same path as you, it's those people who are those relationships that are worth really working for. And those are
yeah,
your end up being your most intimate relationships, whether it's with a partner or your closest friends or your family, people you just encounter in your life. And
yeah,
not everybody, like you said, has to be on the same path, and we're all on our own journeys, but it's just
yeah.
whether or not we want to continue on those journeys together, or if we need to part ways, then that's okay too.
Yeah, and people really do surprise you. Like I flipped my mom, and it still shocks me to this day because she always used to err on the side of caution and be a worrier and worry. But
Mhm.
now she believes in me so much. And if I'm ever like, "Oh, mom, this is like a difficult thing I'm dealing with," she's just like, "Honey, you're amazing. You've got this. I see it for you." And I'm just like, "Oh my goodness, my mom believes in me. I really got this." It's funny too. Even little things. I've always been like this my whole life too, growing and evolving so fast. When I was a choreographer, I was like, I'm really into now. I want to work with advanced studios, and now I want to work with companies, and I want to do different things. I always like that. And I think with my evolution in this too, I'm always been doing the same thing, but I'm always reaching for new tools and always interested in what's that something deeper. And I think when you met me, I was really just starting to truly crack open this world of energy. And
Mm.
I've just deepened so much into that. And I was sharing it with my mom, and she didn't really get it at first. I was talking about energy and talking about energy healing and all these things. And then I've been visiting her a lot as I've been traveling, and I've been actually been really beautiful because got to spend a lot of time together. But she said to me this one morning, I get it. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, I've been noticing something's changing in the house. Something's changing in the house. And she suddenly said, I just realized it's the energy. I get it. The energy in the house is different. And now I feel different every day. And I was like, yes, you get it. So it's so exciting. I don't know why, but that felt like such a victory for me.
That's
So
amazing.
it was really cute. It was really cute.
I love that. Moms, they're the best.
So good. Any final thoughts that you want to leave us with? I'll ask you where people can find you in just a moment, but any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think that we summed up everything in this conversation that really entrepreneurship as a whole is a journey, just like our lives are a journey. And the one thing that I've taken from my experience of knowing you and just over this pivot over the last couple of years is that you just need to be open to it all, right? Just be open to anything because it's when we're just really closed off to new experiences, we can't grow, we can't expand, and we're meant to evolve. We're not meant to just stay where we are. And I think that's just the biggest lesson from this conversation.
Yeah, so it's so funny. I don't know why when you're talking, this meme popped in my head. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's this meme, and it's this girl going, "I girl boss too hard, and now there's all these people and all these orders, and people are emailing me, and people want things from me, and they expect me to show up and do things, and like it's like lot more than I signed up for." I feel like that sums up entrepreneurship so much.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. That was my business before. That is that meme. Oh my gosh, that's
Oh
so
my
funny.
goodness, so good. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you today. I feel like the time I had to look at this and be like, wait, did we just have an hour in no time at all? But
We
where can
did, and
people
I love we just like dove in. I don't even think we did like proper hellos or introductions or anything. We just went right for it. That's
Oh,
amazing.
those are the hellos. That's how we do it here.
I love it.
So good. Where can people find you?
Oh yeah, they can find me. Best place to connect with me is on Instagram. I can be found at rebeccacousins.co. I'm also on Facebook, Rebecca M. Cousins over there. And yeah, I would love to connect. So follow me there and shoot me a DM.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so fun having you. And everyone, I'm sending you so much love, and bye for now.